I'm a PhD candidate in toll machinery and aesthetic flow research. So if you're in mechanical engineering, you might know Dr. So my research area is in aerodynamics and propulsion of turbofan engines. So as you can see what the logo of the group looks like, you have an idea of what turbofan engines are. So turbofan engines are usually, for everybody that have flown an aircraft, usually if you flew a those giant air-breathing engines like that, turboprop would be the ones you have those blades out. So my research area, currently what I'm doing at the moment, is I'm trying to solve efficiency penalties for power layer ingesting fans. Too much of the jargon. How do I interested in that? So, but my approach is computational. So I do a lot of computational work in the sense that I don't do anything experimental. I do design. So everything I do is purely on this laptop and on clusters. So what exactly is DRI and why am I even having this conversation with you guys? So DRI means Digital Research Infrastructure. So in Canada here, the government felt that they want to sort of give edge to researchers in Canada. And what they did was that in different provinces and different universities, you have these clusters. For some of you that have not used clusters before, like, so think of it like data centers. The way you know of data centers like Facebook and all that, but in this case, you are sort of communicating with these servers. So you can imagine this, my laptop. If you, in terms of what I'm doing, and in terms of the capacity of this laptop, because I am doing heavy computing stuff, so which this laptop has no ability to do. I mean, I work with like, on the margin, take like 8 million cells in terms of grid, and the memory usage is like some 200 gig, 500 gig, and I need a lot of RAM. So my system can't do it. So what they did is that everybody in Canada, if you are doing any research and you need storage, you need large RAM to use colloquial words, you have access. So just connect to these things. So the main objective is to ensure that every researcher in Canada is like, they have an edge above every other presses in the world, if you will. So basically what they have 3 services. Advanced research computing, which is the one I'm interested in, and then research data management and research software. So for advanced research computing, there's something we call high performance computing, HPC. So that is, I mean, many of you guys know large language model, AI and stuff right now. So you can imagine if you are trying to train a large language model. So these are, you need like GPUs, heavy computing power and stuff like that. So these are the kind of resources that they provide. And for anybody, even if you are not doing CFD, but if you are interested in things like that, that requires heavy computing power, they provide it, and you can just sort of have access to it. So they have different clusters, Beluga, Lucida, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to waste your time on that. So now, the challenge that I'm trying to solve is that many people don't know about this. In fact, some of you are probably hearing this for the first time. And the problem is that a lot of people are not aware, and so people don't use it. So you can imagine, do you guys have any idea how much it costs to power some of these centers? You use a lot of electricity, and people are not using it, it's just there. So how do we ensure that people use these things? How do we ensure that people take it off? So I was like, okay, I have an idea, and my idea is that I'm going to raise awareness, I'm going to offer training, and then there's going to be like social media posts, and I'm going to write a paper on it. And the point I was driving at is that these systems are Linux based. I'm sure many of you here use Windows, even though it's nonsense. You shouldn't, in fact, it should be the other way around. You should not be using Windows. Windows, you know how someone like tells you, oh man, I need to buy a laptop. I want to buy 64 gig RAM, blah blah blah. What are you going to do with it? Say, I just want to type, Excel. You need probably like a 1 gig RAM system for that. You understand what I mean? So it's similar to Windows. Windows is like for babies in terms of what you can do. You don't see any serious person. I mean, you watch movies, right? And maybe like Homeland Security. Oh, somebody just hacked this system. You don't see Windows. You don't see anything MS Word or something, is Linux. And the reason is because in Linux you have control. So for example, one of the things I used to sell Linux to people is that there's something called swap memory. So you have a system is 16 gig RAM, and then you're trying to do something on your system that requires like 20 gig RAM, for example. Now in Windows, you don't even have ability to even sort of steal some memory, like some small memory from your hard drive, because 16 gig RAM is basically the RAM. But with swap memory in Linux, I can basically tell my system that, I need 20 gig, can you take 4 gig from my SSD? Something like that. You can't do that with Windows. And maybe in Mac, I don't like Mac anyways. So the point is, I want to teach Linux, sort of introduce people on how to use Linux, how to work in Linux environment, offer training, and also on OpenFOAM. I know many of you might not have an idea of what OpenFOAM is, but if you have any desire to further your career in computational fluid dynamics, you would need something like OpenFOAM. So I'm willing to offer some training on that as well. So basically, like a 1 hour per week, 3 weeks training, and then it will just be like, an introductory to intermediate level. You don't have to know anything about programming to learn this. And by at the end of the training, you have an idea on how to write, basic scripts. And then for OpenFOAM training as well. So for OpenFOAM, I'm not sure if I should go into much details. I don't know how much time I have, and I don't want to bore you guys. But so imagine you are doing like let's say analysis whereby you would use something like ANSYS Fluent or you use something like StarCCM, and then you find yourself in a situation whereby you don't have license. With OpenFOAM, it's open source. You can do the same analysis, even better, with OpenFOAM. And then, because these are like Linux-based code, then everything just complements each other. So, but for this one, you would need to have some small knowledge of, at least you know what is pressure, you know what is temperature, you know what is maybe Bernoulli equation, small knowledge of basic dynamics, understand. So, I don't know if I did justice, but if you like to register, that's how to just scan that QR code. And I would like, if there's any questions, please ask me questions. Ask me questions, please.
Yes, where will this training happen?
Yeah, so it's going to happen in the university. Mm-hmm. So right now, because everybody's time is a little bit different. Yeah. So I'm flexible. I'm willing to bend. I'm gathering information in terms of people availability. Then I'm going to then use that to determine the timing and the venue. Right now, the venue I've not asked for any space, but it's most likely going to be in CEI. So that's basically that. But I've not really decided on the venue or the time, because I want to work with everybody's time. Because I'm doing PhD, I don't write exams, so I'm yeah, please, questions. And by the way, this is a funded project. So if people want burgers every meeting, yeah, the money's on it.
Yeah.
That's a good sale.
Yeah, that's a good sale.
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious. Honestly, I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be funny. If all you want is like get Big Mac every
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's the new NSBE. Thank you.
So please, more questions. And again, so even if you are not in computational fluid dynamics, please, you need to know how to use Linux. If you're an engineering person, at this stage, Linux is it's like when people right now don't know how to use like basic spreadsheet, for example, like Excel or LibreOffice. These are like basic tools that you need to have. It's not every time you find yourself in a place where you are always moving mouse and you need to know how to use Linux. I don't know how best to explain it, other than the fact that Windows, I mean, in this day and age, people still pay for like things like MS Office, things like that, when there are open source versions. In fact, you should not be paying for any license at this point, at this day and age, when we have, for example, there are people who pay for GPT, and we have Llama 3, it's open source. Beta AI is open source. You understand? So everything has to be open source. You don't pay for what, if something is free, don't pay for it. So basically that's like the point. And I would like if anybody have any questions, please. Yeah.
For the programs, I see Linux and OpenFOAM. Do I have to have a Linux system to run the program? Or
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I understand that
most of us are
people have Windows. So there are two ways to do it. You can install like they call it virtual machine on your system. But if you don't have which is usually was the case, if you don't have a high performance, not high performance, like a very good system. So for example, like I have like good RAM here, which is like 64 gig. So maybe yours like maybe 8 gig or 16 gig, So instead of that, there's something called I think they call it Windows to Linux, whereby you can still use your Windows. And in Windows there's something you call command prompt, something like that. So you can still use it even for a Windows system. So yeah, you don't have to worry too much about installing Linux. There's always a way around it, even for a very what would you say, not so strong system. And if you have Mac as well, yeah, you can always run Linux on Mac. Yeah. Any questions, please? You guys are not asking me questions. Interesting.
It's very good education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the program, will they be able to get like a certificate so students can use it to like post on LinkedIn and stuff like that?
So I can. I'm not sure about that, but what I can do is I can ask DRI people for just like an acknowledgement. Like this, people people took part in this social program. Just acknowledge them, and they can have them like on their website. I definitely I can ask for that because you have to understand this. So the government, I think the government give them some ridiculous amount of money, like some $27 million or so. Like, just make people use this thing. And so, okay, let me give you guys like a bit of a background. So imagine someone like me, came from Nigeria, came to University of Windsor, my first time, and then now I have to do every computational stuff. My laptop cannot handle it. And then, you go to this is their computer room there. All the software, they are all like licensed, or they are all licensed software. You can't even install stuff. To install stuff, you have to go meet Mac, and then this nonsense back and forth, they waste your time. And then even the system they have, they are not strong because they are not. So every research group then have their own system. So if you guys like in my research group, you're like 7. So imagine if I want to run a job, somebody have to wait and stuff. Whereas there's a free cluster. But the reason we are not using it is because people are not aware. People don't even know. And then for those that know, they be like, man, it's so difficult. I open the screen, everything is just black. I don't even know, I don't know what command to use. And it's because they don't know Linux. And for me, Linux is very simple. If you have, in fact, the day you learn just a little bit of Linux, you would stop using anything GUI. Having to move mouse, because with the minute you spend in moving your mouse to click something, I'm already on the command line doing everything in the background, and then I can run jobs in the background. So someone can, I'm not going to talk about nefarious stuff, but people can, do nefarious things with that knowledge as well. So, but yeah, if for anything, you need to know how to use Linux, and I am willing to go through it, even for like a fresher. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for your time.